All right, we're back here in section 1. We're going to wrap this up today. And today we're going to focus on type 1 and type 2 errors. And obviously, when we draw a conclusion from a significance test, we hope our conclusion will be correct. But as we all will know, sometimes it'll be wrong. So these are the two errors. Type 1 occurs if a test rejects the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. That is, the test finds convincing evidence that the alternative hypothesis is true when it really isn't. Type 2 is an error that occurs if the test fails to reject the null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is true. And that is, the test does not find convincing evidence that the alternative hypothesis is true when it really is. Okay, so those are the two types of errors that we're going to see. So we might get kind of used to those. And again, as we kind of say here, here's kind of our different things of what could happen, get some correct conclusions. Obviously, the type 1 occurs and the type 2 occurs. Kind of there. It's kind of a put on square there. So there we go. All right, so let's talk about it here. Here we go. A potato chip producer and its main supplier agree that each shipment of potatoes must meet certain quality standards. If the producer determines that more than 8% of the potatoes in the shipment have blemishes, the truck will be sent away to get another load of potatoes from the supplier. Otherwise, the entire truckload will be used to make potato chips. Now, to make the decision, a supervisor will inspect a random sample of 500 potatoes from the shipment. The producer will then perform a test at the 5% significance level. All right, so now the null hypothesis is that the proportion of potatoes that have blemishes is 0.08, and the alternative hypothesis is that they have more than 8% of those that have blemishes. All right, so we just want to describe what the type 1 error would be and what's the consequence of that, and then the type 2 error, what's the consequence of that. Okay, so the type 1 error could be that, okay, the producer finds convincing evidence that there's more than 8% of the potatoes in the shipment that have blemishes when the true proportion really is 8%. Well, then what's going to happen is he's going to end up sending that truckload back. It should be good, but he's sending a good truckload back, and that's wasting time and then costing money here on that case. So that's something there we don't want to make. The type 2 error, of course, would be that the producer, we don't find convincing evidence that more than 8% of the potatoes in the shipment have blemishes. And actually it does, and the true proportion is greater. Well, then what we have is we have an inferior product. We're going to make more potato chips with blemishes, which lessens the quality of what we got, and so customers may not like that. And then, of course, no one wants that potato chip that has that big brown stain on, whatever that is. And so then they might reduce the quality and then, of course, decrease sales, which we don't want to see happen either. So those are errors we want to avoid if possible. Now, our significance levels, of course, as we talked with confidence intervals of being at the 90, 95, and 99% confidence interval, well, the same thing with our significant levels here. We want to be at 5%, 1%, or 10%. Now, the question, of course, is which one of these is the best choice for a given significance test? Depends on whether a type 1 error or a type 2 error is more serious. So kind of go on that idea. Now, probably making a type 1 error in a significance test is equal to that significance level, A, that we have there. So we can decrease the probability of making a type 1 error by using a smaller significance level. All right, but there's a trade-off. As one increases, the other decreases. So we might decrease that, but then we might increase the probability of getting a type 2 error then if we do that. Now, if we make it more difficult to reject the null hypothesis by decreasing A, we increase the probability that we'll not find convincing evidence for the alternative hypothesis when it's true, and that's kind of the downfall of what we have. So there's a balancing act there that we kind of have to work with. So that kind of just wraps up. Make sure we kind of understand there'll be some nice exercises starting on page 596, 21, 23, 25, 27. Then those multiple choice on 29 through 32. Those are some good exercises. Really help familiarize ourselves with those type 1, type 2 errors. So study those, make sure we're solid on those, and understand the consequences of those. Those are kind of important things too. So that wraps up section 9.1. Until next time, I'm Mr. Book.